Wow. Hey, everyone. We have 7 days left. So we got 7 days, and it is absolutely one of the most important midterms that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Usually we don't pay attention, but according to the latest stats, over 23 million voters have voted, have lodged a vote. And we're just going to look at Georgia, and we're going to look at Florida because that's where the panel are from, and those are a couple of critical states. Georgia, in particular, a couple of states that I believe the whole nation will be watching. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what does that mean to Black folks, and how do we, if anything, over the next 7 days, y'all hear me now, over the next 7 days, Black folks are able to do something that helped turn the tide. I understand the tide is not going in our favor necessarily. I'm not sure how that is so, but it is so. Um, so Albert, what are we talking about? Red wave?
I don't. All I can tell you is what I heard. Okay, I'm not one to
I
start.
hear you, but tell me, what are we talking
Okay,
about?
okay. So far, Stacy is behind by a bunch of points,
All
and
right, give me
the,
better than a bunch of points.
10
Like,
to
she
7 points.
10%. She's 10 points behind, and then you got Warnock who's like 3, 4 points behind from a guy who's never run for office, who, by the way, has spent a neighborhood of $30 million to get elected. So, what we should be talking about is, have we been focusing on the wrong thing? We've been focusing on voting. We might need to be focusing on how you buy a politician, because that's what they did. They bought Warnock, and I mean, not Warnock, but they bought this guy Walker, who has
Walker.
no experience, and they're gonna just sit him in the seat And just like you would do the ventriloquist, you're gonna put your hand up his back and work his mouth and work his head. That's what it looks like to me.
Definitely, that's one of the conversations that I know we're going to talk a little bit about that buying power that we seem to lack.
Mm.
But I don't think there's ever been a better example than Warren, excuse me, Walker, in terms of buying a politician, no matter what, getting him through, and
Mhm.
with a lot of expectations. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure with a lot of expectation.
Well,
Well,
I
I
could.
don't know how they can have expectations of Herschel Walker. He's psychologically unfit. He has multiple personality disorder. We don't even know who the hell we're talking to when you talk to Herschel Walker. You don't know who's being interviewed. I mean, I'm not being facetious. It's documented. He's clinically diagnosed as having no fewer than nine personalities. So, they bought nine senators. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that that's possible, you can hope for the sake of humanity that whatever polls that Albert was looking at are wrong. Polls have been wrong before. Um, but if your state of Georgia is willing to elect a person with multiple personality disorder, and I don't know if I'm not trying to be ableist. I don't know if I'm even calling that by the appropriate term at this point. But if people are willing to do that for the sake of the seat, if people are willing to do what they're willing to do in Florida, you have a man who's watering down the education system so much so that he wants to remove critical thinking, and he's packaging it as something that is a total misnomer and a totally misnamed critical race theory philosophy, so much so that no one ever knows what it looks like. You're saying, what are we going to do over 7 days for black folks? I mean, it took them how many years to put that in place where it makes sense. So
Mhm.
what you can do is vote. Best you can do. That's the best you
Let
can
me
do
add,
right
Well,
let me
now.
add, let me add
well,
one more point before y'all go any further. A friend of mine who was a politician in Memphis, named I'm gonna call him Thomas Long because he'll talk to you anytime you want to. He'll tell you about the political landscape. He held office over there 2 or 3 times, and
Mhm.
he says this is what black people have misunderstood about this process we call voting. He says it's $1 for one man, and that's the way you get elected. He said it's one vote thing. It doesn't carry as much sway because it's all about who pays the piper, names the tune.
Yep.
yeah, we're touching on Walker and how this could be. Honestly, when I watched the debate, I was preparing to get some popcorn. It was a long work day, and I said, I need a few laughs before I turn in. And what I saw was what money can do for you. Walker was calm, reflected Georgia outside of the Beltway, and he hit back in a controlled manner.
Yes, he
I
did.
mean, I saw that man. I'm sitting there like, what? The first 5 minutes, I'm like, this man has Warnock on his heels early.
I think
He
the
had
tenth
Warnock.
personality showed up. I think the 10th person has showed up, and somebody
Yeah,
we don't know.
yeah, they probably they yeah to that maybe you get if you're paying 30 million, then you got enough coaches in there to wave that watch and hypnotize that personality to come out. But it came out. I mean, he was unflustered. He hit Warnock back point for point. Warnock was very disappointing, but I expected to be disappointed by him
I think the
because
bar was set so low that if you have grandchildren or children or nieces and nephews, they would have looked good in the debate by that standard. And that's what's tragic to me is that Warnock had to make sure not to crush him,
I
whereas I would have crushed him. I would
right
have
Warnock.
made him. I would have made him
Right.
have an episode.
Yeah, Warnock should have crushed him because he only had one debate, one opportunity. But Warnock, to me, does not have the political intellectual savvy to go in there and win a debate. And he proved it. He sounded like a typical gatekeeping Negro whisperer, just given a canned script. And I'm like, dude, you got to come better. You holding back against yeah, he's just a football player,
Against
but he has a
against
football player's mentality. He's gonna strike back. He's gonna follow his coaching, which is 30 million. Got him. He's gonna follow the coaching. He's stuck to the script. And in my opinion, and again, I got no skin in the game because I've already done what I haven't done in 10 years. I've already voted, and I did not vote for either one of them. So I got no skin in the game. I got no favorite between the two. And Walker, at a minimum, held his own, and Warnock didn't walk away with any extra points. He didn't because, lastly, Walker did his best to tie himself to the Georgia that is outside of the 10-county metro area of Atlanta,
Yeah.
and he did an excellent job with that.
But
And
there's nothing.
yes, I would say that he did an excellent job. And in the last maybe week, 8 days, he's doing even better. I saw a press conference he did at Warnock's apartment. I was like, who is this guy? Where is, and he is relating to the people. Warnock is turning Black Americans off. Okay, he
Mm.
exactly what you say. He's a gatekeeper. He's trying to play it safe. No backbones. I never believe preachers need to be politicians. I just don't believe that. So he's going to lose. He's going to lose to Herschel Walker. It's going to be embarrassed for him to go the following Sunday and get in front of that pulpit.
you know what's bad is that none of this has anything to do with governing people.
Correct. Yes, I agree. I
We could
agree.
basically be talking about a middle school popularity contest.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we're talking about the fact that we don't know what this group is capable of because we weren't alive to see what those folks were capable of back in the day. We read about it and we had our elders tell us about it. But we're about to see that if they get control over things worth controlling, you're going to hear nigga a lot. You're going to be a nigga a lot. You're going to be hanging from a tree. And if you don't, you're going to be put in a position to have to vest up. You don't know that it's not going to be like that.
Well,
And people are out here worried about, Warnock didn't do this and Herschel Walker's bars so low. The fact that he spoke English that someone could decipher made him win the debate.
Since Monday, I think that's when Elon Musk took over Twitter, or maybe
Officially, I think
was
it was
that?
Friday. It was
Friday.
Friday.
The word nigger has kind of appeared online 500-fold. It's
What do you mean
flying
500
like
fold?
it is. I mean, people are free right now to just do whatever they want. They're bold and they are using nigger a lot on Twitter. So the cat is already out of the box. They're almost celebrating now because everything seems to be shifting their way. I don't think Herschel Walker matters. I don't care what he does or what happens over the next 7 days. He is in. They have, just like you said, they bought him, and they know, and he has his assignment, as they say. He knows the assignment. They know he knows the assignment. So he is in. They're going to come out and they are going to vote for him lock, stock. I mean, Marco Rubio is horrible.
Yes.
But they, white folks, are going to vote for him and don't care anything about how bad he did in his debate performance. It was just like when he did that rebuttal after one of the inauguration. I was waiting for him to get some water. He was that bad again, and he will beat Val Demings. Because
what
it
about
doesn't
Stacey?
matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well we do. Charlie Chris out debated homeboy
DeSantis.
right?
Yeah.
They're out debating across the nation. I'm watching every debate across the country, and it does not matter. What matters is the seats, and the fact that the seats equal power. Power is what we're dealing with, and Democrats aren't used to that. They're not used to really trying to finagle things and make it all about power. But if they don't get power, the Republicans. All is
Yeah.
just about law. They've got some key policies to pass before those older Congress people go out to pasture. And if they can get those things in law and lock up the Supreme Court, the
Well, see,
left or those liberal policies have no chance over the next decade or so.
So
well,
what
to your,
about
to your point
Stacey?
on
What about Stacey? We'll talk about Stacey. Stacey got a chance then? Is that what do you think about that?
Stacey's gonna
Yeah.
lose by 12 points.
Yeah.
Yes, Stacey's not going to
Stacey
win.
She's not going to win. Her performance in that, I said, let me watch this other debate and then let me bring out the popcorn.
Yeah, I watch both.
And I'm like, her performance, the second debate was worse than the first.
What?
And she, you know, her problem is that, well, yes, we're talking about Walker being on script. Stacey Abrams has been receiving the receipts from San Francisco since 2014. Okay.
What I don't get,
She was on script last night, taking all kinds of points that have nothing to do with Georgia. Nothing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, I'm listening. I'm like, what does this have to do with the state of Georgia? Nothing.
You know what gets me, right? If Jeanette is a jiu-jitsu champion, right? A standing jiu-jitsu champion, and she and I are to have a championship fight at whatever technique we want, why am I going to fight jiu-jitsu?
Exactly.
They're going out and having the Republican conversation time after time after time after time. And what it says ultimately is that voting is something that keeps us from burning the place down. That a lot of things are predetermined. The Republicans are going to run inept politicians. They're going to run inept people because at some point they don't know what to do. They're going to ask what to do. So that dog, you can wag that dog easy.
And
Dog is not going to think about wagging the tail.
And I think to Ken's point, when I look at both parties and who they're running, yeah, they're going to run Walker or somebody like him. But on the national stage, the Republicans are, I believe, I haven't spoken to any Republicans in a while. I don't know. Just from observing. Oh yeah, they'll talk to me. But I've observed that they are willing to give up the national stage. They don't care. Yeah, we'll run Herschel. Okay, if he gets in, good. If he doesn't, whatever. We'll run Marco Rubio. Yeah, if he goes back to punk, yeah, fine. He's out of Florida. Let him stop in Washington. Fine. He went to the wrong school anyway. We don't care. According to him, he ran out of gas on the way up 75 and he stopped in Gainesville. He's admitted that. But that's okay. Just stay your ass up there. As long as our ground game keeps us in control of the states. And going to Jeanette's earlier point about the Democrats and how they're battling, Democrats are afraid of gaining power by using rationality. And what do I mean by that? They never argue on points. They try to argue on emotion. And first of all, I'm sorry, Becky and Chad, you can't argue on emotion. It's not in your DNA. You're not good at it. But what you're trying to do is trying to win voters who operate on emotion, and they underestimate our intelligence. I don't want to hear you up there pushing my buttons about, as black people, they were lynching you. Well, I got a 12 gauge. I don't worry about that. Don't push. Come to the house. Yeah, come to the house. Yeah, I live with that every day.
I'll be here.
I'll be right here. I got a 12 gauge and a machete I sleep next to every night. I'm good.
I got 11 palm trees on my property. Take your pick if you can get me up there.
Hold on.
I'll just wrap up real quick. You know, I'm debating this one sister on FB, and she's a staunch left-wing, tree-hugging Democrat. Want to argue from emotion. I'm saying you need to define. Here's an example. Then I'm going to move to Albert real quick. I'm sorry. I put on my FB page, can anyone define Semitic? Because all you black people out there, he was being anti-Semitic. Oh, he's being anti-Semitic. Really? Here's a definition. Now tell me what he said that fits this definition. Oh, well, Alton, well, we don't have time to really lay out all that. Well, you better make time
You gotta
because
make time.
because the narrative setters in this country, the academics, the courts, the government, they speak a different language and all this. Oh, we gotta love each other, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. They don't talk that language. They talk, even though what we're telling you is crap, you better come into this courtroom, into this forum, speaking according to rule and definition, or you will not win. And that's what the Democrats have been doing. They think that, oh, we just pull the heartstrings and play the violin, and then, everything will be good. And then as long as we get the Negroes on our side, oh, how's Puff Daddy? Boo, 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 boo. No,
Okay,
that
so-
doesn't work.
So here we go, Walter. Here's what I want to bring us back to on Stacey.
Yes.
That should be important for some strange reason. Right after the Supreme Court passed the ruling about anti-abortion, and right after Kemp affirmed that Georgia was going to go heavier into getting rid of abortions in this state, all the women, in parentheses, all the white women, got up and said, you will pay in the midterm elections. They voiced that for week on week on week. Okay, so tell me why the only articles I'm seeing now is up to the black men to get Stacey elected. You see, explain that to me because see, up until that point, everybody is like all excited.
Right,
Oh,
yes,
we
yes.
gonna get you, Republicans,
Yes.
we're gonna get you, Kemp. But
Right.
now that it comes down to the real deal, Kemp is not ahead on 10 points because of white men, I'll tell you that. He ain't ahead because of black men. He's ahead because of white women.
Thank you.
And when they start trying to sidetrack, they trying to sidetrack the argument, and that's where the vote should be coming from, and that's where we should put the pressure if you want to vote.
I agree with
Yeah,
you
not-
100%. 100%, I agree with that point, and I do believe, like I said to you earlier, the white women always go home. They go home every single time. They do not stay and stand with the issues for equality.
No, they
aka
don't.
ERA. So yeah, I just think that you are absolutely right on point on that one.
Mona,
Yeah.
what'd you say?
Mona.
Mona.
No, I was agreeing. I was always going to say, when they go home, they white husband, they're going to fall in line and they're going to vote
Yeah.
Republican.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to tell, people I come in contact with. Abortion is not our top issue.
No, it's not.
That to be our issue. It is not our issue. And yeah, they're going to fall in line because they
So
cannot
what is our
see.
issue then? What's our issue?
As
Economics has to definitely be the issue.
economics got to be our biggest issue. Police reform. My daughter just told me something the other day. Her and her friends were over, and she says, "Mommy, do you remember when we was rallying for George Floyd?" And I had them, making signs, going out, telling her to get engaged. And she said that back then, that Biden, because everybody thought Sanders was going to get it, and they came out, and Biden had two major commitments he made to the black community: police reform, and she said something about lift all voices or every voice. And she says he haven't done any of those. So these kids are 3 years old and they're not interested. And I had to tell her, well, you have to vote. You have to vote right now. We're going to try to keep the Senate, but everything else and some of those amendments on the ballot, we have to vote for those things. But they're not interested. They remember police reform. She not, come on. People are not engaged. People are not excited with the Democratic Party. And all people going around, they don't like the fact that he's telling us to get Pookie, them, and take them out to vote. Well, she said, well, most Pookies I know have felons. So they're not voting.
I'll say this though, and it's one of the things that's very unfortunate, right? The game is played now where the issues are secondary, right? What there is to know is secondary. And regardless of what you think of Barack Obama, one of the things he was able to do is take calculus and tell you that it's basically mathematics. And I think that if more Democratic or left leaning or centrist leaning or anybody but from the right was more willing to take the time to explain in simple terms to simple people what's happening, people don't realize that's fist bump with the Saudis made the gas prices go down. That trip that Nancy Pelosi took to Taiwan, and I don't know what deal she did for herself, but that made semiconductors more available, which makes your used car less expensive. Now, it took me how long? Maybe 5 seconds to say that? Supply chains were jacked up before COVID. If you remember that barge that went askew in the Suez Canal for about 2 weeks. There's logical reasons for why things are the way they are economically. You hear them say that?
So what can we
hear them
expect?
saying that.
What can we expect after this election as black folk?
Mm.
We didn't get, pardon me, wow, excuse me. The same
I can't hear you,
stuff
Ken. What can we expect after this election? I'm not hearing you.
My
I think,
sound. Hello, you got me?
yeah,
Okay.
we're not.
Yeah, I
We're
got you.
not.
I
Got
got
me
you.
now? I think we can expect the same foolishness we've been getting. What's going to change in a week? I mean, Albert, really, what's going to change in a week? If
We're
what
gonna
you
see
say is
this.
true, if what you say is true about what's happening in Georgia,
All right,
and
so
it ends up being a bit of a trend, I don't know that we can expect anything short term. It's about mid game and long game.
let
As
me
I've
let me
said
let
the
me
whole
help
time.
you out. Let me help you out with that. Yes, you can expect something short term. It's already happening. The
What would that be?
Supreme Court is looking at affirmative action. All right, so it's already happening, and we're going to steadily see the right wing send up settled law into the Supreme Court, and they are going to, like clockwork, start whittling them away. So yes, we can. They've been waiting for 50 years. They are now ready to change things right before our eyes. So there is nothing that we're going to be able to do except lose some rights. And we're going to sit back and look at it because we don't
When?
have a plan. We've never had a plan, and we still don't have a plan, even going into
I
this
get what you're saying.
election.
So
I
let
do
me
get
let me add
what you're
something.
saying.
Just the other day on the news, the news announced that Judge Brown, the new Supreme Court judge, has to recuse herself in the affirmative action case because of conflicts of interest because of her involvement with Harvard.
Right.
Now, the most important case coming up dealing with affirmative action, and the newest Supreme Court judge is the one everybody was high fiving over because she was a black female, and she's going to be sitting there on the sideline watching as everybody else goes along with business as usual.
Well, yeah, I hadn't heard.
I would use the
She
Clarence
participated
Thomas standard.
yesterday.
Well,
I would
she
use the
talked
Clarence
yesterday,
Thomas
but
standard.
yeah,
Okay.
she,
I ain't
she
recusing
that's why I
myself from
said
that.
this came in on the 6 o'clock news tonight.
So no wonder she sounded more like an advocate yesterday than a because when I was listening to her, I'm like, home slice, you're not supposed to be arguing this case. And
Chill.
she was arguing the case. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you, Albert. Because I didn't know that. Okay, so she felt a little freer. So she can sit in that when they meet in that little room, she won't be a part of the consensus.
Right. She won't be a part of the consensus. So once again, they're challenging the affirmative action in an environment where here's some statistics. Harvard is where they're suing, right? Right now, they're in a neighborhood of 12,000 white folk at Harvard. There are 4,000 Asians at Harvard, and only 2,000 black folk at Harvard. Now, tell me
Yes.
what is the affirmative action? Why do you need to go after that? We're already the smallest group there. The Hispanics have more than we do. They have almost 3,000 people
All
at
right.
Harvard.
Let me answer that for
But
you.
it makes you
It's
just
let me just answer that. Everything will resort to power. They need to do this because there are too many of those Africans and Caribbeans coming over here getting these PhDs and law degrees and whatever else, and their children and us are not. they have to, the die is cut. The die is being cut so that in the future that their children have position and are able to take over for them when they are gone. Power is at the root of every single thing that they are doing, including this
Yeah.
affirmative action thing with the Supreme Court.
So what do we
No,
need?
I
What do
can't
we
think
need
of
to
all the
do?
reasons.
I get your
Huh?
point. I get your point, Jeanette, that we're right now, we're going through all the draws, we're going through all the cabinets of law, of American historical law,
Yes.
and what it's going to come down to, hold on, everybody, it's going to come down to Gen Z at one point. It's not going to come down to us. It's going to come down to Gen Z when they come of age.
Who are the Gen Zs again? I keep forgetting. I don't get
Those
mixed
are the
up.
people who are like 21, 22 now.
Okay, my son.
Young.
All right.
Yeah, my daughter, my son. It's going to come down to them because you know what? You know what my daughter said?
Mm.
I mean, she's a voter. She's conscious. She's paying attention. She said, "None of this. This is ridiculous. None of this makes sense. This is absurd. None of this makes sense." Now, at the foundation, these are people with very high expectations. These are very entitled people. The world is supposed to be good to them.
That's right.
If the generations before me effed it up and it's supposed to be good for me, I'm going to go in the underwear drawer. I'm going to pull out that thing and say, "What's that brown stuff in your underwear?" And it's going to be embarrassing and you're going to hate it. But you know what you're going to do? You're going to walk your behind over to the washing machine and you're going to wash that underwear, or you're going to be humiliated and moved to the side. Those young people don't give a doggone about us old people because we've let them down. And this period of time, well, that's the perception anyway, with schools getting shot up and all that stuff, the people that's supposed to protect me and molesting me, all this other stuff, right, that we go through on a daily basis. You can't even keep me from getting sick. My God, when they come of age, and the review that you're talking about, Jeanette, which you hit me with something there. I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep tonight. When you review everything, the bad thing about a review is that all your stuff comes out.
Yeah.
All your liberal stuff, all your conservative stuff, all your progressive stuff, and we put it out on the table and say, "What the hell is this?" That is what Gen Zs and forward, that's how they look at the world.
Yeah.
Mm.
I agree.
Are
I
they
agree
voting in
too.
this election? Are Gen Z
Yeah.
voting in this election?
I want to
No,
try
pick 'em up.
something, y'all. I agree with you. I want to try something. I want everybody to mute. Just everybody mute.
Okay.
And now I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk. And now can you go on?
Hello, 1, 2, 3, testing.
All right, Mona. Can you go on?
Hello,
Okay, and Alton.
can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I'm starting to hear feedback. So mute
Oh.
again. Mute again for me. And then Albert, I need you to unmute.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear feedback on this?
So Alton, are you muted? I just need, okay. So go ahead. Albert.
You want me to mute again?
Yeah, you and I are the only ones on, and Mona's on. I still hear feedback, even though I don't know if we can solve that with any one of us. So let's come back on.
All right, so here we are. That commercial break
Maybe
brought to
we-
you by the
Maybe we
technician.
should all be on mute until someone's talking,
That would
All
be,
right,
yeah, Mona.
because I think
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Ken. But I think that bottom line is every time I ask a question of like, why is that happening? Or what are they doing? Or why aren't we voting? Or whatever. Or how are they able to stay with such a lie? Or who in the world can vote for Herschel? And then I look at it and I think too much is at stake for such a time as this. And if we look at history, history shows where There are major shifts politically. I think we're in the middle of a major shift politically. And what happens on the other side, to your point, Albert, what happens to Black folks, I'm not quite sure, because most of us don't recognize this shift that is about to occur. But it is happening, where we're going more toward an autocracy, because too many of you Black and brown people are going to be in positions of power in the future, and white folks can't have that. They just can't. So this is their last chance, this midterm election and the presidential election, to put the rules and the policies in place that will give their children a fighting chance to take over, to maintain. Otherwise, your children will take over. And they can't have that, because y'all got masters. You gave your children masters. You gave them PhDs, and they are, excuse me, woke, as Mona indicated.
Here's a great example.
The thing about
Yeah.
that, one last thing, and I'll be very short, is that when I talk to my son and daughter, right, about people they experience, they have a pretty eclectic experience of people who they experience, that there are a good many of the young white Gen Zers who aren't down with that old way of thinking either. Because,
Yeah.
for example, if you're an athlete, right, and let's say you're gorgeous, let's say you're great at your game and you're gorgeous, right? See, now you can get an NIL deal and you could be a millionaire now. Look at this guy, Chase Young, who plays quarterback for Alabama. This guy has an income now in excess of $1 million, right? We go back to the old way. We go back to the indentured servitude Division I college football player. He doesn't get to do any of that. So you're not going to show that to a Gen Zer and take that away.
Yeah, that's true. But our generation and those above us who are now on the way out, they know that their children are for that whole equal thing, and they don't see it the world the way that their parents do.
Yeah.
They just don't, and they won't make the kind of decisions. They're going to look at, yeah, we're all the same. Mitch McConnell knows he has to put the rules and the laws in place and the right judges in place to override any inclination their children will have that we are all the same and we all are equal, and so on and so forth. This is an important election for that reason.
Right.
And they know that the majority of us stick our head in the sand and we have no idea what is going on. We have no idea.
I think also people have to get comfortable with the idea that the law doesn't apply the way it once did, or the rules don't apply the way it once did. I'll give you a sports example. If an opposing defensive lineman or linebacker hit my quarterback, right, and there was no flag, that came as good news to me. Because guess what I play? Defensive end and linebacker. That means I can go in and get busy. I think the way that for one, the younger folks believe those folks going to die soon, right? And that's like, the coach is going to get fired soon. They're going to die soon. The Mitch McConnells and those folks, they're going to be dead soon. And it'll be our game. And we'll play the game the way we feel like playing.
But it won't be their game.
I think it will be. I think it will be, because if you show me,
maybe in 10, 20 years it'll be their game, but it will not be their game.
I have one last thought.
The game will be won or lost in the courts, and they have stacked the courts against their own children.
All right, if you want to take the side of defeat, that's fine. But what I did not get to say is that this absence of rule has not taken place in a vacuum. Maybe Gen Xers ain't down, maybe baby boomers ain't down, but let me tell you something. If you show these young folks ain't no rules, they're not following any rules. See, we're here following the rules. They're hitting us below the belt, and we know that in this game you don't hit below the belt. Well, these younger folks don't give a doggone about that. If you hitting below the belt, we gonna hit below the belt. See, so it's a little, yes, I do agree with you. Yes, I do. But I don't think it's going to take 10 to 20 years.
So let me add some history, because I'm the history buff and I love to look at how things go in cycles.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to tell you is, and I'm going to ask it this way first. Go back and I want you to think about how many things that you do that your parents did that you swore you never do.
Well, with raising kids
Now,
and such.
Let me finish the
I'm
point. I
sorry.
want you
I'm
to
sorry.
think about that point
No,
right there,
I have an
because
answer
what
for that.
happens is these Gen Zers and all you're talking about how they don't see race and they don't see color and they got black friends. At some age, when they start looking at how they're going to build their security and how they're going to continue in the lifestyle that they become accustomed to, they're going to
Right.
go back to the old ways of their fathers
No, they're
and
not.
begin to act exactly like that.
No,
And
they're
I
not.
think that's what you're seeing now.
No.
History is repeating itself because just like the first Jim Crow, this new Jim Crow is identical because black folks were doing the same kind of things then. There were doctors, lawyers, presidents of colleges, wealthy black folk all over the place.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then they decided enough is enough and they began to turn it over. And it's been turning over for the same number of years now that it turned over back then. And as you say, now that the courts are stacked. So the question is, what we gonna do? What are we gonna
Let
do
me
as
just say
black
one
folks? What
thing.
we gonna do?
That's what I
Albert,
want
let
to
me
know.
just say one thing before we continue. You said that I said Gen
Say
X
one more
don't
thing, and then I
see
want to
race.
hear from Mona.
You said that I said Gen Zers don't see race. I never said that. What I'm saying is that they look at the world differently. Now that may be translated to you that they don't see race, but they look at the world differently, totally differently, and we have no context for how they see the world because we a lot of times didn't go through what they went through. That's what I say.
Okay, I thought
Yeah.
somebody said that. Yeah.
Yeah, it may have come through me, but I will say that it's not that they don't see race for the point of clarification. It's not that they don't see race. They see race, but they're more accepting of the differences and not trying to negate and trying to get their friends to assimilate. I think they're more accepting that you are black, I am white, and the whole privilege talk. All right, I'm not going to let you respond to that. I'm going to Mona.
Yeah, you better.
So, so yeah, well, I think they are generally might see the world different now in their 20s, but wait till they start having families and children and life hit them. They are going to know that the world belongs to them and it is their job to pick up where their fathers and grandfathers left off.
Talking from the white perspective.
Absolutely.
You're talking from the white perspective.
Yes,
Pardon
she
me?
is.
You were
She
talking
is.
just what you said was from the white perspective. So what
Yes,
that kind of
yes.
implies for me is that the Gen Zers, black and brown Gen Zers, don't have a similar such perspective where they look and they see mistakes the way Gen Xers saw mistakes. I don't do things the same as my father. I don't relate to the people that I
Right.
relate to that are different from me the same as my father. So why would I expect that my son would do the same in his time? So yeah, I did do some things because you do what you learn, right? You do what you learn when you grow up in life. But I was given the blessed upbringing that my parents were not afraid to say, "Hey man, we might be messing some of this up." Go with what works, but if you find something else works, do you? I'm not gonna say that everybody was raised that way. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I did everything better than my father and my mother, but I did not do everything the same just because I grew up.
Right, right. Alton,
Yeah,
what say you? Alton, I can't hear you.
He's muted.
We
He's
still
still
can't hear
muted.
you.
You're
So,
still muted. Yeah.
Mona, you're going to make a point. Mona, you're going to make a point.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not going to do everything as a parents, just like me. And I realized I had my daughter late 35, and I swore I wouldn't do it the way my parents did it. But by the time I had her and realized at 5, what they did and how they laid things out worked. And guess what? I did it exactly the same. Now, yes, I did some things different, but pretty much as far as values, raising her, it was the way I did, um, the way they raised us. And that's what these people, you see these kids, they are able to be young, free, they could do all this stuff. But when it's time to come into the real world and take over, when it's time for them to pick up that baton, they generally fall in line.
We'll see. They
We
look at
just
the
have to
world
have enough of us.
totally.
We just
They
So,
have
look at the world
enough of our
totally different from us.
life.
They
so
look at the world.
basically the way we're talking tonight, there ain't really no reason to go vote if you really want to know it, because we already know they stacked everything against us, and we already know that it's going to be a red wave. So,
Forget that.
what's the
I'm voting.
point?
So what
Forget
we
that. I'm
know
voting.
is what we know is they are stacking things against us. And this is where I think I
And that
came
I'm
in
voting.
earlier and y'all were laughing at me, but the red wave ain't necessarily the red wave until Tuesday.
We gonna see. We gotta see. I'm
And
gonna vote just in case.
I would like to think that if it is a red wave and if what we say is so, that the Republicans are going after power for good reason, they want to lock in laws that's going to trap anybody who has a liberal thought, and they're going to send all the current policy or the past policies up the pipeline, and yes, they will get overturned, and we will be restricted more and more every day. And that's not going to be long term. It is going to be pretty short term, in my opinion. But to your point, Albert, we're gonna wake up on Wednesday morning and what about what black folks gonna do? I mean, gonna do. What black folks gonna
Don't wake up Wednesday morning.
what's the
Now, now,
plan?
now, let me confess something. I got out early in the morning. We were like first in line almost, in
Yes,
cold weather and all that, and we voted.
I
And when I
saw.
came out of there, I actually felt dirty, like I had done something wrong. And here's why.
Wow.
The things that you have said about the Republicans understanding power and the Democrats not approaching it or even addressing it almost made me feel, once again in the back of my mind, if you know somebody is going to be punching you, as Ken say in a sports, if you know they're coming to box you and you don't come and bring your boxing gloves, then that means either somebody told you not to bring them and you helping them, or you scared, one of the two. And somewhere in the back of my mind, it's almost like the Democrats are saying, okay, we're going to let you take over like the good cop, bad cop. We're going to let you take over for a while and get this thing back and ramrod it. So I felt like, golly, am I wasting my time playing this game of Democrat versus Republican? So that's why I felt dirty coming out of it. But I did my due diligence as my so that my mother wouldn't turn over in her grave. But it still
Yeah,
made me feel like, ugh.
yeah.
Can y'all hear me now?
I'm gonna ask Mona to weigh in on it because I know that even though she's telling people to vote, she has some very strong feelings about that. Mona, what's up?
Yeah, I am telling, and I voted last week because there's still a few things. But just what Albert was saying, and you know why I believe just why Democrats, they win, white people win no matter the Republicans or the Democrat. They win. And this is why a lot of my neighbors, they don't even care. Life is working fine for them. They're going to win. And I believe that. We the ones got to come together and and change it.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? You can?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but to Mona's point, to everyone's point, yes, white power, Democrat versus Republican versus Libertarian, white power, it doesn't make a difference to white power. So, oh yeah, and to the earlier point about children changing children changing their minds. Yes, when they get older, they're gonna start acting like their parents. So, yeah, they start acting like their parents. And also another thing we got to consider is that as the globe changes, we see all these shifts um, in the geopolitical power. Whites here are going to react to that. They're going to feel more. They're going to feel. They're going to feel extra surrounded. So
times being
I
what they
think,
are, I think is Jeanette saying something? You're
well,
muted.
I think we are all muting to kind of cut down on
Yeah, it was
that
me and I
feedback we're
forgot.
getting.
I was following the direction of muting. So tonight is kind of we've been gone for a month and we're still figuring ourselves out. But our children have more information than we ever did. When we were growing up, when I was a little kid, I knew what was in my community, my immediate family, and then my community. And beyond that, I just didn't know. To that extent, I do believe that our kids will repeat the cycle because we do every generation. That's how I do believe that slave descendants are sort of carrying some of that baggage from back then and so on and so forth. Everybody carries it because we hand it down. But there will be some shifts and changes because they are going to be much more connected to a global existence. They're marrying each other outside of the race. There's more openness, which is going to suggest that this browning of America, we're just going to see more brown people in families, mixed families, and I do believe we're going to see a shift. So to the point of, will my kids grow up and do exactly, not exactly, but pretty much what I'm doing? I think there's going to be less of a chance than it has been in the past
Shift
for
is a
that
good
reason.
word. Shift is a good word. And maybe I
Yeah,
spoke a little too drastically in too short a period of time, but there will definitely be a shift
Because
because
my dad,
their breadth of knowledge is impressive. But right now, because they're so young, they don't have depth of knowledge. When they acquire depth of knowledge, that's when you'll start to see a shift.
right?
yeah. But I
Yeah,
don't want to
I mean,
dismiss, yeah, I don't want to dismiss that whole when as the white boy grows up, suddenly he's looking at, I got to compete for that job. Suddenly he might shift back into some of, my daddy says I deserve that job because I'm white. You know
well,
what I'm saying?
baby Bush went to a school when he was president, and he went to this school that was made up of all these genius private white kids. And he says, "Don't you want all the other kids to grow up to be just as smart as you?" And the guy answered him as blunt as you can get.
Yeah,
Why would I want that?
exactly.
You hear
Exactly.
me? He said, "Why would I want that?" And what he was saying was, "When I come out of here, I want the best of
Be on top.
everything, and I don't want to have to compete for it."
Right.
And
But
that's the
that's how the
problem
system,
that you got,
but
you
that
know?
is how the American system is set up,
Yeah, but
Albert.
that's why I said it will repeat itself whether you want to or not.
I
Because if
get
I
you.
grow up living in a house with $1 million and all of a sudden you tell me, well, you got to go out and get your own and start at $8 an hour, I'm going to be like, man, you get ready to get a cussing out here because I don't understand. I want the inheritance. I want everything that the inheritance entitles me to. And that's what I mean when I say there it's going to repeat itself. Those young kids may hang out with black folks now, they may have fun, but
Right.
at some point, their daddy and mama will turn to them like they turned to Jimmy Carter when he was out playing with his little black field hand and say, "Look, son, it's time to get real. Come on in the house and leave little Billy Bob out there in the field."
But
You see, and that,
what if
yeah,
black parents what if black parents telling their kids the same thing?
nope. Black parents are saying, "Hey,
You're
can we
looking at
all
a
live
black parent
together?
that tells their kids that.
Kumbaya, yeah, we
No, you're
love
looking at
each
a black
other."
parent that tells them you're not like everybody else. You don't
Now,
want to be like everybody else.
I'm
You better
saying
than
that you,
everybody else.
and I'm not gonna use you as a
You're
standard.
not getting
Otherwise,
10
you wouldn't
bucks
be
an
on this
hour,
call
baby.
right now.
You're not getting 10 bucks an hour, baby. You know,
Yeah.
I'm on it like that, and I don't think I'm in a vast minority. I mean, I don't think I'm in a
Well,
majority either. Don't get me
You're
wrong,
you're s- you're I think you're more in the minority.
but
I
I
I
don't think
don't
I'm in a
think
vast minority of people who grew up of means. They went out and got of means. And why would you then tell your child, since I'm of means, you got to be better than me? Why would
Ken,
I
look at
tell my children otherwise? I went to high
Ken.
school with a whole bunch of people that are on it like that.
Ken, look at me. You are not normal, okay? Just like the rest of us on this call are not normal. We think and talk like you're talking, but there are a lot of people say, hold your head down, go to work, come home, make a good living, and don't cause any trouble because
That's a fair
we don't
point.
want no
That's a
trouble.
fair point.
Now,
yeah,
that,
don't
now that's
cause
the paradigm that we're living under because
that
if you don't
is.
cause any trouble and you can just wake up and say you're breathing, then you happy with life.
I was
So
married to.
no,
And that's exactly what is going to help usher in the autocracy, um, where our rights will be whittled away and we won't even notice it. And then we'll complain that we don't have these rights anymore, but we didn't do anything when we had a chance. And November 8th, we have a chance
to do what?
to vote in the candidates that we talked about earlier that we said don't have a chance to vote.
We are as we have been in a something is better than nothing situation. And what you're talking about, Jeanette, is our we have to change it, and that's what the ask is all about. We're always voting slate because we're voting against. I mean, and that
Okay.
that hasn't worked.
In Florida, you're voting against DeSantis. In Georgia, we're voting against Kemp. In Georgia, we're voting against. We've forgotten what Warnock has done because we're so busy voting against Walker. You guys down there are voting against who is the congressman that you're voting against down there?
It's
You know,
Rubio.
yeah,
Rubio.
Rubio. You voting against him.
Yo, and the
So
choice is Charlie Chris.
right again,
No better.
yeah.
What the hell?
You know what
I understand, but oh my God. I understand Charlie Chris. He was not my choice either.
You,
Nobody,
you
nobody's saying
understand
that
Charlie
I won't
Chris?
vote for him because I will because again I'm voting against.
No,
But that's
I
what
got
I'm.
you.
Charlie
But
Chris
here's
only
the
wants
thing.
to run. I don't know if
Here's
he wants to win. I just think he likes running. If he were
I
to
don't know
win,
what he likes
he would
doing,
wake
but
up and go, "Are you serious? I won this thing."
all right.
Yeah.
We are gonna have that call with the brother that you introduced me to. I'm just
Thomas
sort of
Long.
waiting
Yeah,
it out
Thomas
till we,
Long.
yeah, because he has a wealth of knowledge, let me tell you. The question that I think you asked earlier, Albert, or somebody kind of touched back on, we need to start, buying our candidates. And
Yes.
I think in the new iteration on the other side of this vote on November 8th, that's exactly what we have to put in place as a people. We have to start buying candidates and begin developing our own voice in Congress because we don't have a voice. We don't have one at all. President Biden the other day got back on the television and said he needs two more senators, and if he gets them, he didn't say reparations, he didn't say anything pro black. He said he would codify Roe. That's what he said. That's the deal that he's making with America. That's ridiculous because he wasn't talking to
Yes.
us like you said. He wasn't talking to our issues. He was getting those women out. He still ignored us.
What you
So
gonna do about
we
that?
have to
Because
be about
they got,
yes, go vote.
they think, they think our issues are too radical. They won't say defund the police. They can't say reparation. Even black politicians. That's what got the people in Atlanta mad with Warnock. He doesn't even want to say reparation. So I don't know. And we got to start November the 9th. I think we wait too late to get in the game.
Yeah, we have to be mindful of these 2 year cycles. And to Mona's point, you got to start early. You got to start November 9th.
So here's a thought: the Tea Party, which made up maybe 10% of the Republican Party, was able to move the Republican Party's agenda
Yes.
simply by formulating themselves as a group. And it would seem to me that since y'all are in love with these Democrats, that if you could form a black agenda within the Democratic Party, it would make sense that that handful of people could dictate where the organization would go, where the direction it would go in, and could then ask, like you've been asking all along, Jeanette, what's the ask?
Yeah.
Okay, we could then dictate instead of saying, "Will you please do this?" We come in and say, "This is what I need you to do if you want our votes."
All right. I'm going to end on what is the ask because that is exactly the case, Albert. But there have been many Black agendas across the country, even here locally in Tampa, I'm sure, in Georgia, that have not got off the ground. It does not galvanize our people for some reason so that we can. So I'd like to propose that we figure out in this group, that's got to be the marching orders. And perhaps on November 9th, we come back together with Mr. Long and start talking about how we put together that group, that pack, that agenda. All right.
There's
Hey,
a
everybody.
real quick. There is a former congressional candidate in Florida, Pam Keith. She appeared on Karen Hunter's show on YouTube a couple nights ago. But long story short, she touched on the necessity of political savvy, i.e., buying candidates, even though she didn't say that. But form um,
She did say we form a super PAC.
yes, forming a pack, forming I guess in addition to that, super lobbying group
Yeah.
because
Yes.
blacks are not playing that game.
Yeah.
And so I'm not too familiar with her. I knew she ran, and I just lost touch, and then I saw her again. But long story short, that seems to be a resource, especially in Florida, that can be
Tapped into. I agree. I absolutely agree. I wrote her name down because I'm going to search for her as well. Hey, you guys, thanks for a great conversation. I did miss you over that last month.
missed you too.
But we could consider, and you guys let me know. Well, let me just say bye, everybody out in Cable Land. We are